Mr. Trump, Senator Cruz mentioned the issue that keeps me up at night, which is religious liberty. Churches, Catholic and Christian colleges, Catholic adoption agencies, all sorts of religious institutions fear that Hobby Lobby, if it's repealed, it was a 5-4 decision, they're going to have to bend their knee and provide morning after pills. They fear that if Bob Jones is expanded, they will lose their tax exemption. Will you commit to voters tonight that religious liberty will be an absolute litmus test for anyone you appoint, not just to the Supreme Court, but to all courts?
Yes, I would, and I've been there, and I've been there very strongly. I do have to say something, and this is interesting, and it's not anybody's fault. It's not Ted's fault. Justice Roberts was strongly recommended and pushed by Ted. Justice Roberts gave us Obamacare. Might as well be called Roberts Care. 2 times of the Supreme Court, Justice Roberts approved something that he should have never raised his hand to approve, and we ended up with Obamacare. That is a rough thing, and I know Ted feels badly about it, and I think he probably still respects the judge, but that judge has been a disaster in terms of everything we stand for, because there is no way that he should have approved Obamacare. Now, with that being said, these are the things that happen, but Ted very, very strongly pushed Judge Roberts, and Justice Roberts gave us something that we don't want.
Ted Cruz, Senator, the Chief Justice got Hobby Lobby right, but what do you make of Mr. Cruz's criticism?
Well, listen, Donald knows that it was George W. Bush who appointed John Roberts. Yes, it's true. I supported the Republican nominee once he was made, but I would not have nominated John Roberts. I would have nominated my former boss, Mike Ludig, who was the strongest proven conservative on the Court of Appeals. And I'll tell you, Hugh, you know, it's interesting now that Donald promises that he will appoint justices who will defend religious liberty. But this is a man who for 40 years has given money to Jimmy Carter, to Joe Biden, to Hillary Clinton, to Chuck Schumer, to Harry Reid. Nobody who supports far-left liberal Democrats who are fighting for judicial activists can possibly care about having principled constitutionalists on the court. And what Donald has told us is he will go to Washington and cut a deal. So that means on Supreme Court, he's going to look to cut a deal rather than fight for someone who won't cut a deal on the Constitution but will defend it faithfully.
Can I trust you on religious liberty?
Let me just say this. Look, I watched Ted, and I respected it, but it gets nowhere, stand on the Senate floor for a day or 2 days and talk and talk and talk. I watched the other senators laughing and smiling, and when Ted was totally exhausted, he left the Senate floor and they went back to work, okay? We have to have somebody that's going to make deals. It's wonderful to stand up for 2 days and do that. Now, Ted's been very critical. I have a sister who's a brilliant, she's a brilliant judge. He's been criticizing my sister for signing a certain bill. You know who else signed that bill? Justice Samuel Alito, a very conservative member of the Supreme Court, with my sister, signed that bill. So I think that maybe we should get a little bit of an apology from Ted. What do you think?
Senator.
Let me tell you right now, Donald, I will not apologize for a minute for defending the Constitution. I will not apologize for defending the Bill of Rights. And I find it amazing that your answer to Hugh and to the American people is on religious liberty. You can't have one of these crazy zealots that actually believes in it. You got to be willing to cut a deal. And, you know, there is a reason why when Harry Reid was asked of all the people on this stage, who does he want the most? Who does he like the most? Harry Reid said Donald Trump. Why? Because Donald has supported him in the past. And he knows he can cut a deal with him. You know what, Donald? I don't want a Supreme Court justice that you cut a deal with Harry Reid to undermine religious liberty, because that same justice will also erase the Second Amendment from the Bill of Rights.
When you say crazy zealot, are you talking about you, crazy zealot? Give me a break.
Senator Rubio, you've heard this exchange on religious liberty. Yep. You have said that religious liberty will trump even the ability of people to stay away from same-sex marriages, not provide flowers, not provide baked goods, etc. Are you satisfied with this exchange on religious liberty?
Well, I think you ask a very important question, because the issue here about the next president of the United States has to fill this vacancy. Justice Scalia, in the history of the Republic, there has never been anyone better than him at standing for the principle that the Constitution is not a living and breathing document. It is supposed to be applied as originally meant. And the next president of the United States has to be someone that you can trust and believe in to appoint someone just as good as Scalia, plus there may be at least 2 other vacancies. So you asked Mr. Trump to respond and say that he would, and he says that he would, but the bottom line is if you look at his record over the last 25 or 30 years, on issue after issue, he has not been on our side. Now, if he's changed, we're always looking for converts into the conservative movement. But the bottom line is that you don't have a record there to look at and say, I feel at peace that when Donald Trump is president of the United States, he's going to be firmly on our side on these issues. In fact, very recently, he was still defending Planned Parenthood. He says he's not going to take sides in the Palestinians versus Israel. These are concerning things. And so, yes, I have a doubt about whether Donald Trump, if he becomes president, will replace Justice Scalia with someone just like Justice Scalia.
Mr. Trump.
Well, let me just say, first of all, I had great respect for Justice Scalia. I thought he was terrific. And if you talk about evolving, Ronald Reagan was a somewhat liberal Democrat. Ronald Reagan evolved into a somewhat strong conservative. More importantly, he was a great president, a great president. As far as Planned Parenthood is concerned, I'm pro-life. I'm totally against abortion having to do with Planned Parenthood. But millions and millions of women, cervical cancer, breast cancer, are helped by Planned Parenthood. So you can say whatever you want, but they have millions of women going through Planned Parenthood that are helped greatly. And I wouldn't fund it. I would defund it because of the abortion factor, which they say is 3%. I don't know what percentage it is. They say it's 3%, but I would defund it because I'm pro-life. But millions of women are helped by Planned Parenthood.
Governor Kasich, back to religious liberty. You've been a little bit less emphatic. You've said same-sex couple approaches a cupcake maker. Sell them a cupcake. Can we trust you as much on religious liberty as the rest of these people?
Well, you know, of course. I mean, and look, I was involved in just being a pioneer in a new church. Religious institutions should be able to practice the religion that they believe in. No question and no doubt about it. Now, in regard to same-sex marriage, I don't favor it. I've always favored traditional marriage. But look, the court has ruled, and I've moved on. And what I've said to you is that, look, you know, where does it end? If you're in the business of selling things, if you're not going to sell to somebody you don't agree with, okay, today I'm not going to sell to somebody who's gay, and tomorrow maybe I won't sell to somebody who's divorced. I mean, if you're in the business of commerce, conduct commerce. That's my view. And if you don't agree with their lifestyle, say a prayer for them when they leave and hope they change their behavior. But when it comes to the religious institutions, they are inviolate in my mind. And I would fight for those religious institutions. And look, I've appointed over 100 judges as governor. I even appointed a judge to the Ohio Supreme Court. And you know what they are? They're conservatives. Go check it out. They are conservatives. They don't make the law. They interpret the law. That's all they do. And they stick by the Constitution. So I will do that. But let's just not get so narrow here as to gotcha this or that.
Dr.
I think
Carson,
my position is clear.
Let me wrap it up with you. Are their positions clear? Are the positions you've heard clear about the First Amendment and the First Freedom?
Well, first of all, let me just add my praise to Justice Scalia. I first met him when we got an honorary degree together a long time ago. Tremendous wit and intellect. As far as religious freedom is concerned, one of the basic tenets of this nation. And I believe that the Constitution protects all of our rights, and it gives people who believe in same-sex marriage the same rights as everybody else. But what we have to remember is even though everybody has the same rights, nobody gets extra rights. So nobody gets to redefine things for everybody else and then have them have to conform to it. That's unfair. And this is the responsibility of Congress to come back and correct what the Supreme Court has done. That's why we have divided government. And we're going to have to encourage them to act in an appropriate way, or we will lose our religious freedom. And as president, I would go through and I would look at what a person's life has been. What have they done in the past? What kind of judgments have they made? What kind of associations do they have? That will tell you a lot more than an interview will tell you. The fruit salad of their life is what I will look at.
Thank you, Dr. Carson.